What's up, everybody? Welcome back to this week's episode of the Tesla Geek Show. I'm Eli.
And I'm Anwar Beck. On this week's episode, we've got a lot of crazy things going on. Number one, Tesla finally gets included in the S&P 500. SpaceX has a huge milestone accomplished by launching 4 astronauts to space, and further talks about beta FSD. We may have one of the Tesla geeks with beta FSD to talk about, and more. All right, this week's episode of the Tesla Geek Show is brought to you by our good friend Matt Home from the Home Team, aka the Tesla Realtor of Austin. If you guys have any kind of investment needs in the growing Austin economy, want to buy or sell real estate in Austin, make sure you give Matt a call. He is the president of the Tesla Owners Club, the ultimate Tesla geek. We call him just like he's part of the Tesla Geek family. He's an 11 out of 10, just like us. So make sure to give Matt a follow. He can be reached at as email, matt@mattsellsaustin.com, or you can call him directly at 512-769-1695, or you can go to his webpage, which is hometeamaustin.com, and home is spelled HOLM. Matt, thank you so much for your sponsorship, man.
All right. Here we go. Let's jump in with the biggest news in the Tesla universe this week. It's caused the Tesla stock to go soaring. What are we up, like 18% so far on the week?
Dude,
and
madness.
Tell us what happened.
You guys remember, I believe it was after the second quarter earnings call, we all thought, since Tesla has been, I guess there's like 5 quarters in a row of profitability, that we would eventually get added to the Standard & Poor's 500. For those of our listeners that don't follow the stock market or the investment world, just a high-level summary of what S&P 500 is. It's 500 of the largest U.S. companies, and it's kind of like a stock market index to track kind of what's going on in the stock market, okay? So it's a very big deal to be included as part of one of these 500 companies. So there's a little bit of a delay. Like, we all thought this would happen several months ago, but finally this week, Monday, November, the 16th, after market closed, the S&P announced that Tesla would be included, but it's kind of a crazy thing because they basically pushed it off until December 21st of 2020, which gives us several weeks until this happens.
So Monday, after hours, to the surprise of everyone based on the timing, right? They make the announcement. Tesla stock was up like 10% after hours, almost immediately in after hours trading. And in the last 2 days, we've seen this crazy run up too. And so let's talk about why it is that they gave this crazy window that you were just talking about of until December 21st. Like, why do you think that is?
Typically, when companies enter into this S&P 500, their market caps, I don't know, somewhere like $5 to $10 billion range. Because it makes sense, right? Like, if you sort these companies from first all the way through 500, the top companies in the world, again, are the ones that we know, the names that we know: Amazon, Google, Berkshire Hathaway. Like, these type of companies, it takes a while. So for a company to make entry, and the way this S&P works, it's a weighted average as well, right? So the bigger your market cap, the more influence these companies have on this index, or this, depending on your market cap. So the reason is kind of a little bit of an anomaly is Tesla is already worth over $460 billion in market cap. What do we close at today? At $486.64. Tesla's market cap right now is $461 billion. At that market cap, Tesla would be entering this list of 500 companies in the top 10 immediately.
That's incredible. Like, with a near $500 billion market cap, adding to an index. So this is what's kind of one of the things that's drawn up the stock to last week, is there is a lot of hedge funds, mutual funds that track the S&P index. And now with the addition of Tesla making up 1% of the fund, there is hundreds of billions of dollars of money that now have to adjust their positions if they're going to continue tracking the index, and are going to have to buy, 1% of their fund amount in Tesla. And that's going to put a lot more money into the stock. And it also has huge implications for Tesla as a company as well, because it's going to put a lot more of their shares spread out across mutual funds, which also is going to make them a much more stable stock, which also makes it a much more a much more attractive investment. Now, none of this is financial advice. We're just giving our opinions about the way markets work. And some of this is pretty well tracked. But yeah, no, this is a huge moment for Tesla. And it's what blew me away was this is the type of thing that people were always looking for after hours later than the week. But they surprised us this time, and they did it on a Monday. Like there's so many days I've seen tweets about, hey, is today the day Tesla gets added to S&P? I don't think I saw a single tweet on Monday about that, and then it dropped, and it was like everyone was all talking about.
Shout out to our friend Rob Maurer, Tesla Daily. If you guys want a podcast or a YouTube channel that really follows the financials very closely, we love Rob at Tesla Daily, and of course our boy Gally from Hyperchange. We follow those guys religiously. Like those are our boys. I was listening to I think Rob did a quick video on this, and he was saying that like at the current valuation, Tesla would essentially be a little over 1% by itself of the S&P 500. Like, that's massive. And like I said, when companies typically enter into this 500, they're not worth anywhere near the market cap Tesla is. So it doesn't have as much of an impact, right? It's probably like a 0.01% impact on the overall weighting. The big behemoths like the Amazons, the Googles of the world, Microsoft, those are the guys that are kind of like really moving the needle when it comes to the S&P. When S&P announces that companies are entering into the 500, they give you kind of like 1 day, 2 day. I think max I've seen is about 10-day notice or whatever for companies or for the indexes to kind of like buy into these companies. But with Tesla, it's over a month. Like we're sitting here recording November 18th. This isn't happening until December 21st of 2020. So there's a lot that needs to happen because another thing that's exciting, Eli, is like what you were saying, dude. Like, I mean, back in the day, we used to have I want to say 20, 25% of like the stock market trades used to be like shorts on Tesla, right? And now it's decreased a little less than 5%. So that's not a massive part. It's basically, I think a lot of investment firms probably use the shorting as kind of like a hedge in different investments that they have. But what's crazy is that they're giving, 4 or 5 weeks for the stock market to kind of adjust. And we're not like, nobody knows what's going to happen like over the next several weeks, but there's definitely going to be a lot of movement. I think that's something easy to say between now and like December 21st.
Guaranteed. We've seen a lot of movement. We've seen a lot of upward movement in the past couple of days since the news. And there's a lot of speculation of what's going to happen. There could end up being a very tight squeeze on buying that causes the stock to run up, and or people who've been in the stock for a long time could end up taking this as an opportunity to sell, and it offset the need from all these indexes to buyers. But the one thing is guaranteed is that this opens up a whole lot more investor base for Tesla when you consider all these funds and all these investors that only buy into these hedge funds and mutual funds that normally wouldn't never have touched Tesla. Now by participating in these index, they're now investors in these companies. So it's phenomenal for Tesla that after 5 quarters of profitability, and it was nuts. In the same week that S&P 500 happened, Elon tested positive for COVID, we'll talk about this in a minute. SpaceX successfully delivered 4 astronauts aboard Crew Dragon to the ISS. So, like, what a week for Elon, man! Talk about ups and downs, but still a heck of a lot of ups.
Crazy week. Week 47 of the year of 2020. It was a massive week for Tesla. And the thing that, from a financial standpoint, what I'm excited about is when these mutual funds and index funds, when they're buying in to Tesla, they have to hold these long, right? They can't be trading. And that's what's the cool thing. A lot of the purchasing that's going to be done over the next several weeks is going to be locked up for a long time. If Tesla is 1% of the S&P 500, they got to hold somewhere near 1% for when people are buying into these Barron funds and the different, a lot of times I used to work in oil and gas, like through our 401ks, at least at Anadarko, the company I used to work for, you couldn't buy directly in the Tesla when you worked there, right? But you could buy these index funds. So I remember some of the index funds I invested in basically tracked the market. And what that means is something that tracked S&P 500. So until December 21st of 2020, these people that are investing in these index funds don't have any exposure to Tesla whatsoever. And post December 21st, they will. So it's a massive, massive implications.
And one of the other things that I saw started changing this week, and I'll be honest, I was a little bummed to see this happen at the timing that it did, because I had another buy planned of Tesla the next month. There was some timing based upon some losses I was writing off before when I make this buy. So I've still got to wait another week or so. But Morgan Stanley's Adam Jonas has returned to the Tesla fold. So here's what he said, I think today. Tesla is on the verge of a profound model shift from selling cars, volume X price, to generating high margin, reoccurring software revenue, platform, which equals platform users times average revenue per user. That statement right there from a large institution like Morgan Stanley is another death nail in any of the narrative that Tesla is just a car company. Because this is a Morgan Stanley analyst saying they are now evaluating Tesla as a technology company who's going to be selling software as a service to users on their platform. What took you guys so long? We've been shouting about this forever.
We've been screaming about this for a decade.
It's all about the amount of users that own the cars, and it's what? Now? What? Now of all times are getting, you know what it tells me is that Morgan Stanley's already secured their position in Tesla, and now they're like, hey guys, by the way, this shit's about to blow up, so let's let it go.
I mean, dude, it's been a long decade, right? Again, we talk about this a lot, but just to summarize, Tesla in the beginning was a fledgling startup that was doomed to fail. I think Elon's even said, he said there's a 5% chance or maybe 1% chance that he thought Tesla would actually succeed as a profitable company. So they overcame that. And then Model S and X weren't going to work. They overcame that. And then they said, well, they built these amazing cars, but they can't scale, which is the Model 3 debacle that happened in the beginning, trying to mass manufacture these vehicles. But basically, Tesla, by the end of 2020, being included in the S&P 500, I think is the final validation. There is no more. They've proven quarter after quarter of profitability, right? Now it's the next decade is going to be this exponential growth that Elon talked about. The last decade has not been easy. People like Eli and I that have been, in the community following Tesla from an investment standpoint, dude, there's been a lot of heartache, a lot of up and downs. Investing in Tesla is an emotional experience, which you know how they say you should take emotions out of it. It's hard to do that sometimes. Like I said, I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before. When I invested in Tesla, so many people, because back in those days, dude, it wasn't a normal thing. Tesla was, during the Obama administrations, it was supposed to be a failure, right? Solyndra and all this stuff. There's a point where people thought Tesla was just this make-believe company. And that's why this short position and the reason that people like us invest in Tesla is not only because we believe in what they're doing, is I think I've said before, you have to invest with your capital sometimes on the future that you want. Over the next decade, I would love for the next generation to live in a world where a company like Tesla is the biggest company in the world, right?
And when you see the product too, it's a no-brainer. When you've experienced a product, even when you experienced back when the S first came out, let alone what exists now in 2020. 2020 is just mind-blowing, but the product is so good. Once you've experienced it, they've got this insane mass now of people that experience it that are just even if it was nothing else, even if you didn't care about anyone but yourself and anyone but your own personal enjoyment, you'd look at this thing and you'd know that this is going to work, right? This is going to make it. It's too good not to.
I think Elon on Joe Rogan at one point, I think the very first interview, he said Tesla is basically just the most fun thing you can own. That's such a simple but elegant way to put it. It truly is, dude. It's a life-changing experience. For those of our listeners that are not Tesla owners, at a minimum, go do an overnight test drive. You can talk about it all day long, but until you sit in the car and feel it and experience it yourself, you really cannot understand what we're talking about. It's something that only can be explained by sitting in the car and experiencing it and enjoying it. Would you agree, Eli?
So something I've said since first getting my first Model S 3 years ago is that most things in life do not live up to expectations. They don't live up to the hype. Owning my Tesla is literally the only thing I've ever bought that has completely exceeded my expectations. And I'm still just as excited about having it every time I get into the car as the day I took delivery. Like a lot of things that you buy, they're fun, but then eventually you just get used to it. And it's like, all right, you need a new thing. No, the Tesla is always an awesome thing every time you get into it. And I've never experienced another product. Like there's products in games and all these things I've been into, but none of them have been so satisfying long-term as owning a Tesla. And I think one of the things that really does that is that continues to keep that going beyond the initial quality of the product is the car really does get better with software updates. Like your car does new things that it didn't do. So you're getting new stuff. Like right now, for example, I am one of the lucky people to have the FSD beta. So I'm actually getting to see one of these new products that's going to be driving a whole lot of Tesla's reoccurring revenue, and that's full self-driving. And it's still in the beta, so there's things that they're working out, but the underlying capabilities are mind-blowing. Like I activate this thing, and it like pulls out of my driveway, drives down my residential street with no lane lines, take the turn, comes up to a stop sign. It can't really see around the corner, so it gives me a message in the corner of the screen that says, basically, I forgot the exact wording, but basically it's going to creep up a little bit to get a better look at the street. So it does that, sees no cars are coming, and then at a good speed, by the way, not no slow thing. It it doesn't quite ludicrous it, but it hits the pedal and it goes like pretty quickly on the right turn out into the lane and drives me from my home all the way to the grocery store. And all I had to do was take over to like finish the park.
I never thought about it until our last episode with John and Tesla Raj, where the program, even if it gets you to destination A to B, maybe 2 minutes slower, maybe that's the proper way to drive. And the way we drive is a little reckless, right? A human being just kind of like in a hurry or whatever. The computer program, I never thought about it like that.
Well, you've driven with me, and I get to my destination much more than 2 minutes faster.
You're a madman. When they said, Elon, you madman, I was like, Eli, you madman.
Look,
I do not like driving with you.
For a reason. I'll tell you what, I'm not like an unsafe driver. Like I've never been in an accident in my Tesla. I've only been in an accident once in my life, and somebody like hit me like straight up 100%. Like I've never caused an accident in my life. So I'm not an unsafe driver. But I do use the speed and the acceleration of the Tesla anytime I can in a way that it's safe. But I'll tell you what, I have never been such a vigilant driver since having this FSD beta, because it's a beta. So like it can do some amazing things, and it also can do the wrong thing at absolutely the worst time. And it takes a lot of attention. So I feel like Tesla's way of like being like, you need to chill out a little bit was like, we're going to let you have FSD beta, and you're going to end up being in jail of being like, okay, I've got to really be on this now. Yeah. But yeah, no, you're right. For maybe that is a speed we're supposed to drive. I do got to say, I haven't found in my test that I've really gotten to any of my destinations much later, but I can say one of the differences from where I live versus where John and Raj do in Silicon Valley, they have a lot more traffic, and they have some very weird, complicated intersections because a lot of those cities are kind of built haphazardly and not with a single central plan. So you have some intersections and roads that come from angles that are not as like uniform as what I have in my very cookie cutter residential suburb.
Yeah. I know I've talked to a few people that are looking forward to FSD beta. The way it's being rolled out, I think in the beginning, it's like started in Silicon Valley, right? It kind of like slowly spread to other parts of California. And now I'm assuming slowly, is it international yet, the beta, or no? Is it still in the US?
Just United States.
United States, but slowly. I believe Texas may or may not get it. But like, I feel like all the early data, the beta testing, a lot of it's going to happen in California. So the type of roads and all that. But I guess like the early program skewing to California driving is what some people are worried about in the United States.
I could see that, but like, and Elon has even acknowledged that like where the locations it's developed is where it will be the best first. But at the same time, the large majority of owners, if you want to look at concentration in any single state, is California. So starting with California is not a bad place to go. But absolutely, there is a number of states, East Coast, like our friend Kim. She is in, she's going to kill me. Is she in Connecticut, Delaware, Rhode Island? She lives over there with, she lives in like Quahog. In my head, she lives in Quahog. Like straight out of Family Guy. She's on the East Coast. So more have gotten it recently that are adding more states. But still, like a lot of the initial things they have to work out are all relatively similar type situations that may be presented slightly differently. But unprotected left turns when there's the left turn in the suicide lane, like a lot of these really main scenarios are all relatively similar across locations, and I think that's what they're dealing with first. I know everyone watching has seen a lot of epic videos out there. There's a lot of great stuff. Obviously, for the early beta, Tesla chose people that they trust, that they have a history of doing stuff like with a brand. Because look, it's an early beta. Normally in these early betas, you do not get to post about them. Like I've gotten friends that were like early betas in the Enhanced Summon, and there was no permission to post. And trust me, when Enhanced Summon was an early beta, it did some very weird stuff. And you had to really be there because in the early beta, you could hit a pole or a curb if you didn't, tell it to turn off at the same time. Same thing with early access autopilot beta. It's just a very rare instance where people are getting to share it, but it doesn't mean that it's perfect and it's ready for prime time. But we're helping contribute the data to Tesla to get it there, hopefully as soon as possible.
That kind of already shows the confidence that Elon and Tesla have in FSD, right? Like the rewrite and all that. Like if it was kind of shitty or whatever, like how we think of beta, like I don't know that they would have allowed for people to talk about it. I mean, I believe Tesla was encouraging the early beta testers to share this data to kind of like educate the masses, right?
Yeah, totally. And and I think this is one of their ways of showing people what's coming and helping, allowing us to help build some excitement for the future that's ahead of us. Like the core, again, my take on it is the core capability is absolutely there. Like this is going to be what gets them to that FSD that like eventually, it'll get them eventually to level 4 and then to level 5. Like I think they've got the components there. It's all about refinement now. What the time frame is going to be on refinement of when this can go to a wider release, I can't say. I don't know what the rate of innovation is going to be yet. And it's not for me to say anyway. That's a call by Elon and Tesla for when they feel like it's safe enough to put in everyone's hands. But it's definitely coming.
So you've had beta FSD, for a few days now?
Yeah,
it's been a little while.
I haven't been doing much sleeping since I've gotten it. I got it Friday night, I think it was. Yeah, Friday night.
So just high-level synopsis. I mean, I think you've probably seen enough videos where you had a little bit of an idea of what to expect, but did anything kind of surprise you?
So I had seen videos. I had been in John's car. I visited him, had lunch. He took me out in it for an hour. So that was actually good. So I knew knowing what to expect was really helpful. Having gotten to see it first with John, who'd been doing it for 2 weeks. So John had kind of already learned some of the places where he needed to expect that he might need to take over. I had not seen, though, going from like the front of my driveway. So I did that. I was surprised at the level of confidence and how quickly it will get up to whatever speed you allow it to go. That was like, dang, like, I was worried about I would be the guy who like cars were honking at because I was like, it was doing it, but it was doing it really slow. It does not do it slow. It does it at a speed that is, it's definitely not your grandma. It's not as fast as I normally take some of these things, at least out on the more main streets, not residential. But it does it at a speed that I think is definitely acceptable in traffic. So that was pretty impressive. Interesting. I say the biggest surprise for me was how well it does turns that have like no lane lines, like through intersections with no lane lines. The level of visibility, like seeing on the UI, how like you can see the things that the camera can see, but then the things that are inferring that are there based upon what it actually, like based on what it can see, taking the context to visualize what it infers is there based upon everything it can't see, even the things that it can't, which is exactly like how we do it, right? Like if we're at an intersection and we've got this many lanes going this way and we got this many lanes going that way, even if the other lanes on that other side are blocked, we know that those lanes are there, right?
Can you tell the difference in the UI, the things that it's inferring versus what it's actually seeing?
Not directly, but I can just tell because I know where the cameras are and I know that line of sight is blocked, right? Because an autopilot camera is right on top of the windshield and there's like a semi-truck like in the way. Like it's not always 100% clear what it's seeing and it's inferring, but I've had some cases at 100%. I knew there was no way the cameras could see what it was projecting on the map, but what it was projecting on the map, on the visualization was accurate based upon the context happening around us. So it's pretty wild.
I wonder if a bit of that, I know like the radar that's in the front of these cars, You know how they say like the radar bounces? So if there's a car in front of you, the radar will bounce underneath the car in front of you to see the car in front of it, maybe the car in front of it. So even if you don't have a visual line of sight 2-3 cars ahead, the car does because of the radar. Because it's like using the empty space underneath these vehicles to bounce and kind of see that there's other physical objects that are like 2-3 cars ahead. So if the car in front of you doesn't realize that somebody did a quick stop, the car does, right?
And that's an amazing feature that it uses right now with like existing autopilot, right? Like that blows my mind when my car's like slamming the brakes before the guy in front of me even has, because the guy in front of him is already like started that activity. Yeah, no, that blows me away. So I'm not entirely sure what role sonar is playing, radar or whatever is playing in some of these visualizations that we're seeing, but it is cool. By the time this video is out, there's going to be a video out there on the What's Inside channel that we just did of taking this down the Las Vegas Strip.
Oh, wow.
And that was stunning because there's a lot of cars, but more importantly, there is a ton of people. So watching the car see that, visualize that is pretty fascinating.
Dude, that's epic, man. So that's stepping it up a notch, I feel like. The Las Vegas Strip, because you're totally right. The amount of people that are out there, that's a whole nother different test than what's done in California, I feel like.
Way more. And I'll tell you what, one of the things that I kind of realized is we were driving down to where we were going to start the test from. I was just regular driving, not in any kind of autopilot. And I kind of commented to Dan, I don't know if this made the video or not, but I was like, man, just as a human driver, there is an overwhelming amount of stuff happening around me that I can't even possibly pay attention to, or like even close to all of it. All these lights are flashing. We're driving past the Fountain of Bellagio. There's all these people. There's all these intersections. There's jaywalkers. It's nighttime. There's cars coming from every which way. Like, I'm just like, there's a limited amount of things I can pay attention to where a potential like collision or risk might come from. And then I look at the autopilot visualization screen and it's got all of it all mapped out. The guy in the corner, the person over here, this guy who's jaywalking over here. And I'm like, all I can pay attention to at one time is the cars happening right in front of me and maybe a little bit of the pedestrians on the edge of the sidewalk. But in that situation, he was a human driver. There's a lot more data to look at than I could possibly comprehend.
And I think we mentioned this on our last podcast, but what I expected, I think a lot of people were expecting this beta to not be that great. It's almost like if you want to compare it to human terms, I was expecting like a 15-year-old driver's ed type of driver, like kind of like, I think most people can take themselves back to that. When you first were driving and you're driving, it seems like your car is like taking up 2 lanes as you're driving and all that. Like that's what I was expecting. But it seems like if you want to compare it to human terms, this is like a 20-year-old, 21-year-old driver who's already got a few years of experience kind of learning. But the neural network, the machine learning that's about to happen with all this stuff, as the data feeds in, the exponential growth of this program, it's going to go from like a 20-year-old driver to like a seasoned, you know what I mean? Like a seasoned person with 20, 30 years of driving experience, almost like not even that. I'm going to say like an F1 driving professional. Like it could get to that level in the future, a level that's beyond. And I think that's what Elon is predicting and hoping is that like the software will become a much better driver than any day-to-day driver.
It will. And statistically, I think it's going to be there sooner than people think. And I'll say I am actually surprised that Tesla only raised FSD by 2K now to 10 like they did, and are giving us a chance to buy into it like the full pop now, lock in the price, never have to pay a dime again. Because if they wanted to, they could have waited a few more months and all of a sudden this feature would go for 15K. And there's no reason to say that it won't, by the way. If you've been on the fence about getting FSD and you don't have it already, you might want to start thinking about that now, because like this is going to rapidly advance to a place where the price is going to keep going up. I'm so glad I own it. On all the cars I pre-ordered, I own it. I even pre-ordered another Cybertruck when the price went up. I don't even know if I'm going to rent it out. I don't know if I'm going to give the reservation to a friend, but like I've got a Model Y on pre-order from back at the unveiling. I'm not canceling that either because I think the value of the full self-driving may outpace the value of the car before too many years. Oh, yeah. So that might be an investment that literally the deposit became a value return on the asset. Yeah, anyway. If FSD is something you've been looking at and don't already have, I can't imagine like there's going to be a better window now to get it. And you're going to look back and be like, dang it, FSD is $25,000. Like I can't justify that anymore.
And for those of our listeners that aren't familiar with what Eli's talking about the Cybertruck pre-order, when I first pre-ordered the Cybertruck at the unveil, turning on FSD wasn't an option. I don't believe. Like later on, they added it at some point. So I did, got lucky and I turned that feature on. So you have to log into your Tesla account. And when you go click on your pre-order for the Cybertruck, there'll be a little button you can check, I believe, that captures. So if you haven't done it, probably go ahead and do that right now as we speak. Pull up your Tesla account, go to your order, and see if FSD is checked. Because even if it's 10,000 today, when you pick it up in a year, it could be double. I wouldn't be shocked.
And here's the thing. It costs you nothing to check the box on full self-driving. And I got lucky because I forgot to go back and check. And I actually just checked right now. Because I took a week or two to come around on the Cybertruck, by the time I placed my initial pre-order, it was already there. But on the night of, it wasn't. So I totally forgot to go back and check. And I actually just checked it right now while you're talking. And thank God I got dual motor all-wheel drive with full self-driving capacity.
What was the price? What was the price a week after?
It was $7,000.
Okay, so mine was $8,000. So you saved an additional $1,000. But I guess I'll be getting my Cybertruck very early. And I live in Austin, Homo Cybertruck. So I'm assuming we're going to be some of the first people to get it. And our sponsor, Matt, he's actually a massive Tesla fan as well. I think Matt has 2 of them on order. So Matt and I, hopefully living in the city of Austin, are going to be some of the first people to get our hands on the Cybertruck with FSD.
God, can you imagine when Matt decks out his car with his Matt Sells Austin stickers and people are going to be like, oh my God.
You better move out of the way. That's all I got to say.
I'll tell you what, I couldn't imagine more perfect billboard. I can't even tell you how many business people I've heard that are planning on buying one just for promotional purposes. God, it's going to be insane when that truck's on the road, and it's coming in a year, guys.
In about a year. Yep.
Look at how long, but also at the same time, how fast the past year went by. Cybertruck's going to be here before you know it. It's going to be Christmas 2021, and we're going to be taking delivery of Cybertrucks.
Dude, Matt was telling me, I think today or yesterday, he drove past the Giga Texas factory and he's like, dude, it's moving, it's going up already. It's not even foundation. They're building the buildings already and it's freaking mid-November. Do not be shocked if Tesla is rolling out cars out of that factory middle of 21. But I honestly think they're going to make it in time to deliver at least a few Cybertrucks at the December 2021.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I know Elon hedged it a little bit by said, real volume is going to be early 2022. But yeah, I don't with the pace that they're going at Giga Austin, I can't see any way they don't have some cars coming off the line already. Even with the challenges they'll face with the new manufacturing processes of making an entire car body out of freaking steel, stainless steel, I don't see it being a problem either.
Yep. All right, man. Well, finally this week in the world of SpaceX, I see you've got the Starman image behind you there. It was a massive week for SpaceX. I mean, a little bit of how we talked about how Tesla's inclusion into the S&P 500 was kind of the final seal in solidifying where Tesla is. This was kind of that kind of week for SpaceX. Do you want to explain to the listeners what happened?
Yeah. So this week, and you guys probably heard back in, when was it now? May? SpaceX ran the DM2 crewed mission, and basically they put 2 astronauts, Bob and Doug, our space dads, with their little TY Beanie Baby dinosaur, put them into space for 6-8 week, couple month mission, and it was a demo. So they put them up there safely and returned them back home, and that was basically the proof that this vehicle is now certified for running crewed NASA missions. And just a few days ago, SpaceX put a crew of 4 astronauts from Cape Canaveral all the way to the International Space Station, and they delivered the astronauts there with a plush baby Yoda. It was pretty funny. I love the memes on the internet because the internet is baby Yoda delivered to the ISS with 4 human guests.
So amazing how they do. How does Elon do this? Connecting to the internet culture, he is baby Yoda of the internet, I feel like.
Oh, even next level. And here's the best part about this. the astronauts actually kind of choose what the thing is they take up with them. So like he just delivered them there in the most advanced crewed capsule like ever made, and then they just brought the most epic thing you could ever do with it for current pop culture, like Baby Yoda's now the ISS. I was super bummed because we have this animation project that we've been working on from actually 6 months ago. We had to pause it a bit because we were so focused on just producing Adventures of Starman episodes. But we actually have a different version of the scene where the Mandalorian saves Baby Yoda in that shootout in the street that involves Starman.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so we're going to finish it here soon and hopefully release it for you guys before the end of the year.
So everything did go successfully. I actually didn't get to watch the launch this time around. So there's a Falcon Heavy, I believe, right? So dual booster.
No, Falcon 9.
Falcon 9. Okay. So it's just one rocket. So did it come back safely?
Yep, rocket landed, no problem. Yeah, the flight went completely nominally. Like it was nerve-wracking as heck because, if a payload with some Starlink satellites blows up, no problem. They just make another 100 satellites. But if this one, something goes wrong, we've got 4 astronauts on board. They've got families, and what it means, that is a risk that they know that they're taking. But that loss of life when it happens is tragic. And honestly, it's even more tragic of what it means for the progress to space. Because when a disaster like that happens, even though it's a known risk, government puts everything on hold, investigations happen, and it can be missions can be delayed a very long time because that's just what you have to do when something goes wrong. Even if it's a total fluke accident, you have to investigate it to the nth degree. So nerves are always extremely high, but yeah, everything went off completely nominally. It was a flawless launch, docking with the ISS, done all completely autonomously. The astronauts sit in there and all their screens, like somebody put up a photo on Twitter of like what it looks like from inside the Crew Dragon cockpit to like what it looks like inside the Model 3 with the white interior. And it looks very similar, man.
That's crazy, dude. So how long are the astronauts supposed to be up there?
I believe it's a 6-month mission. What really is getting me excited about each of these launches is seeing SpaceX as they continue to deliver more people to space and continue to build this pipeline of getting cargo and people to orbit, that we're just one step closer to getting back to the moon, to building a moon base, and most importantly, going on to Mars.
I have more confidence that definitely a moon base, most likely us getting to Mars is probably in our lifetime.
Oh, it's going to happen. I don't know if we will live to see a Mars base. That seems like that we may not be alive for that one, maybe, but we will definitely see mankind step foot on Mars. Definitely. For sure. Before we're old.
It's insane. I don't think this is where Eli and I met, but we actually got to be a part of one of the second Falcon Heavy launch, the Arabsat. We actually went to Cape Canaveral. I actually think about that a lot. Whenever I was watching some of these videos of like SpaceX launching 4 astronauts, I'm like, dude, we were there, not at the beginning, but pretty close. You know what I mean? In 10, 20 years out, we're going to be looking back at this and like, launching people and things up to space, to the ISS, to the moon, or even to Mars is going to be, I guess almost as standard as us flying at some point, right?
So what I think will become standard will be, it depends on what kind of time horizon, but yeah, eventually with the Starship fleet, and once we have infrastructure actually there. So SpaceX is going to have the capability to deliver people back and forth from the moon much sooner than we even have the moon base built that can even handle all of those people, right? So SpaceX is very close in relative time to solving Starship. Like they're probably a year, maybe 2 max away from that vehicle being just done, and they're just going to be mass producing it. Then it's going to take a lot of effort to build the infrastructure on the moon, to build the resources needed for water processing, air processing, and all the things that actually make life habitable outside of a spacesuit. So I don't know how many years it will be until we get a solid moon base, but yeah, SpaceX will be ready to go to deliver human and cargo there at scale and at speed.
So I think this last week or so, there's Elon actually announced on Twitter that I think he tested positive for COVID. That's kind of a sad, because it happened like right around the launch. I'm assuming he didn't participate in it like how he normally does, where he's actually like one of the head engineers sitting in the control room, right? Like helping out with the mission. So I'm sure it was a little bit nerve-wracking for him kind of watching it from afar compared to how he normally is.
You could tell based on his tweets, he was pretty annoyed. And yeah, I don't blame him. Of all times, to go this long and not contract it, and then to get it like when it's time to go, right?
Yeah.
When it's time to go be there at either SpaceX Command or at NASA. He probably would have been at NASA for this launch in Kennedy Space Center. Yeah, that had to have sucked.
Yeah. But everything went off without a hitch. So that's the most important thing, dude. Safety of the astronauts. So hopefully all their stuff up in space goes well, all their research, and then we'll see them back on Earth here in about 6 months.
Yep. Well, guys, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Tesla Geek Show, and we can't wait to see you next time.